scratch on it.
You're just trying to impress me.
No, I think you're trying to impress me with this awesome game. And I think that pretty much covers the review for Blast Corps. Who wants to break for lunch? No one? Fine. I'll keep reviewing this game if it'll make you happy. The things I do for you people. Okay, Blast Corps. It's a game on the N64 and was made by Rare, before Microsoft ate them and forced them to live in the void known as faffing about with the Kinect. And as bitter as I am about the current state of affairs with one of my favorite 90s second-party developers, if nothing else, we still have this amazing game, along with a myriad of other ones. But hopefully we'll see some more soon that don't involve that awful, awful Microsoft camera piece of garbage. Anyway, the story is, there's a nuclear disposal truck heading out from a military base. Said truck holds 2 powerful experimental nuclear weapons. However, the radiation has leaked out of these weapons and has killed the 2 drivers of the truck. Now the truck is on autopilot, and if basic math has taught you anything, it's that the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. Said straight line going through all the major metropolitan areas, and a single jostle could cause an explosion that kills everyone. Enter the Blast Corps, a group of ex-military turned experimental demolitions experts, who have been contracted to clear a path that will lead this truck to its intended destination. So, to sum up a long series of words with a short series of words to describe this plot, destroy everything to prevent everything from being destroyed. And honestly, I would take away points for having such a dumb plot, but then I have to immediately give them back because they do point out how dumb the plot is within the plot at one point. So, if nothing else, it's amusing for a dumb 80s sort of disaster flick kind of plot. Now the gameplay takes place in a overhead view, and I honestly don't care for this perspective all that much. In fact, it's pretty much my only major complaint with this game, is I wish that there was perhaps a third person behind the vehicle view, or a first person sort of on the hood view, just so that it's a bit easier to see where stuff is. Because sometimes, perspective wise, it does get a little bit tricky to figure out where you are spatially. Now from this point you will be controlling several different vehicles, and each of them have their own individual profile. You have a bulldozer, a dune buggy, several different cars, including the A-Team van and the General Lee. You have 3 different mech suits, such as the Cyclone suit, which acrobatically dashes through stuff, the J-Bomb, which might be the chillest giant mech with a jetpack I have ever seen. I mean, just check this out. Yeah. That mech's got style. As well as the Thunder Fist, which is a 50-story, solid chrome mech with 1 giant fist. Why does it only have 1 fist? Well, in all honesty, if it had 2, it would be too powerful for the cartridge and it would explode. You also have the Ballista, a type of motorcycle with rockets attached, the Sideswipe, which is a truck with 2 pneumatic shoving devices, and the Backlash, which is also the worst vehicle in the history of anything ever. Seriously, it is a dump truck where you can only cause destruction if you manage to drift and hit something with the back of your truck. Whoever thought this vehicle was a good idea needs to be strapped to the front end of this thing and just rammed into a building a whole mess at times. Because this is the most awkward vehicle I have ever seen in a game ever. And thus comes to my second complaint of this game. The Backlash is awful. Now, as I've said, the main power of the Backlash is its ability to drift and just destroy stuff with its rear bumper. But the problem is it's hard to judge distance in a drift. Generally, you'll end up either drifting far too early or slowing down too much before it's effective. And if that weren't enough, it also is the only vehicle in one of the hardest levels of the game. But if nothing else, you can cheese it like this. So now that you're acquainted with the tools of the trade, let's talk about the levels. Because levels come in two varieties. You have carrier missions and side missions. Now carrier missions are the main levels, where you're trying to clear a path for the truck before it collides with anything. Simple enough in concept, and for the most part it is relatively straightforward. Once you clear a path for said truck, you will finish the level and get a gold medal. You can then re-enter the level and try and get a second gold medal by getting all of the collectibles, such as destroying all the buildings, freeing all the survivors from destroying all the buildings, you get those two at the same time, as well as collecting all the little light markers that light up the streets. Once you get all those, you get another gold medal. Simple. There's also an additional 6 scientists hidden within all the carrier levels. You need all 6 of these scientists to safely detonate the truck, thus complete the game. And while initially the carrier levels are very simplistic, clear a path for the truck, getting all the collectibles as well as finding the scientists to help complete the game actually turns this very simple, destructive, cathartic romp into something of a puzzle game. And I know that sounds a little bit weird, but hear me out here. A lot of the levels are designed in a very specific way, so that if you want to collect all of the things, you're generally going to have to come back a second time after you've already completed the level, and find a specific vehicle hidden somewhere in the level in order to get all of the collectibles. Like this beacon right here. You can't get it without the J-bomb, and it's a $10 beacon. It sucks, and it's dumb, but destroying it at the end of the day, super satisfying. Because while the J-bomb is right out in the open, right here, actually getting to it takes about 15 minutes. Seriously, no joke. You have to go through a lot of crap just to destroy that one beacon, and it's totally worth it. Now let's talk about the side levels. These tend to vary greatly. Some of them are basic tutorial levels, others are tests of skill, like trying to use the J-bomb as precisely as possible, like flying it in this volcano without touching the sides, which is a real pain in the ass. Some of them are races. Others are a little bit more abstract though, like trying to clear a pool table using dynamite, or playing Pac-Man with a bulldozer. And I'm not lying, that is an actual thing that happens. And the nice thing about these side levels is they're of great variance, but they don't ever overshadow the main levels. The carrier levels are definitely the main focus of the game. And while you do need to get gold medals and everything eventually if you want to complete this game, you can mostly just let it sit by the wayside until you're done the carrier levels, if you so choose. I think it's more fun to vary it up, but it's entirely up to you, and that's great. In fact, if you want to unlock a lot of these side levels, you actually have to find them hidden within the main levels. So it creates a great sense of progression in that you have to finish more main levels in order to unlock all the really cool side levels, and that's brilliant. The level progression works quite nicely. You naturally unlock more levels as you complete previous levels, and they're released in batches based on difficulty. So you start with easier levels, and as you get better, you progress to harder levels. Also, as you progress, you get new promotions, and they all have amazingly destructive names. It's terrific. It definitely makes you feel like a badass. And probably the greatest indicator in this game is just how the game measures your score. It's measured in total cost of property damage. That's brilliant! And after all those super cool levels, if you manage to complete them all, you're not done. Because you unlock one final level, where you have to save all of humanity from a crashing space shuttle. You think you're done then? Not even close. They gave you a space shuttle. Do you honestly think they were just gonna leave it at that? No, of course not. Because after that, you unlock a whole mess of new levels. And after you get a gold medal in all of those levels, you're still not done. Because then you unlock platinum challenges, which are playing all the levels over, but with the carrier sped up by a factor of about 10. Virtually no room for error. And they're awesome. And what really impressed me is if you actually do well enough to unlock a platinum medal before you actually unlock the ability to get platinum medals, they carry over, which is great forward thinking and saves a lot of frustration on the back end because those platinum challenges are insanely tough. So, if nothing else, this game gives you an insane number of levels. All the vehicles control a little bit differently. All the mech suits control with the directional pad, whereas all the wheeled vehicles control either with the control stick or directional buttons, but use A to accelerate and B to brake. They also use the R button to use whatever special equipment they might have, provided they have ammo for it. You also have free reign over your camera, for the most part. You can rotate it around at will, although I honestly haven't found much of a use for it. In addition, before you start any of the main carrier levels, they give you a quick flyby to see everything that could potentially be in the way. This is great because you start a level completely aware of the task ahead of you. This game looks absolutely great, and I think it's worth special mention that the explosions look terrific. Seriously, just look at some of these explosions. These are awesome explosion effects, and I think if nothing else, the explosions make this game look timeless. The soundtrack for this game is tremendous, and it totally runs the gamut of pretty much anything you would expect a game like this to have, and more. I mean, sure, you've got hard rock and other disaster flick sort of theme songs that you kind of expect from a game like this, but you also have techno, you have the J-Bombs theme song, which is probably the most relaxing theme to most destructive output I've ever seen. Seriously, it's weird how well it works. And while talking about weird songs that work incredibly well, you have Bluegrass, which, while not something I care for, works tremendously in this game. You have this song, which I can only describe as funkalicious. I think the soundtrack to this game was worth the purchase alone. There is one other neat little thing that I think's worth mentioning about this. Just a neat little technical thing, but this game allows you to save directly to the cart, but it also allows for additional saves if you have the N64 memory card. And this is great because back in the day, or even now, if you're too poor to afford a memory card like I was back in the day, and trust me, playing Shadowgate or Tonic Trouble without being able to save, and those games are such BS in terms of difficulty, and having to start over, that was garbage. This game, you can play entirely off the cart without a memory card. And if you've got a memory card, you suddenly have 4 save files. That's awesome. I love that it gives people who might not have the money to afford a memory card options. That's great. And that, in a nutshell, is Blast Corps, a game that proves that destruction is very cathartic. And in developing a game that was based around this catharsis, Rare developed one of the most memorable games on the N64. And the great thing is, it's not wildly expensive. You should be able to get this game for $15 easy, and I absolutely recommend that you do. If you have an N64, you absolutely need Blast Corps. So I will leave you with this one final piece of advice. Whatever you do, don't leave your multi-billion-dollar piece of experimental demolitions equipment in front of a nuclear disposal truck. It will hit your equipment, it will explode, and you will feel like a dumbass as you lie, dying in a nuclear death hole. Have a nice day.